We had a fiery day in court today that ended with the demand of a mistrial and some words exchanged between the attorneys. It is Monday, June 7th, and we just wrapped up day 29 in Karen Reed's second trial. The day started out with some motions the judge heard from both sides. Now, the prosecution is wanting to bring in some rebuttal witnesses after the defense wraps up their case. That includes someone from the lab where they tested the swab for dog DNA. And Brennan wants to bring back Maureen Hartnett from the crime lab and Dr. Welcher from Aperture. And the judge allowed this. Now, since they're bringing back Dr. Welcher, the defense actually asked to limit Welcher's arguments to only discuss the new testing that ARCA did. And also, Ms. Little said that there's apparently a big part of Welcher's report that's wanting to kind of like attack ARCA and their work. So that's considered improper and that will not be allowed. Now, the other motion was on Dr. Lapisada, which we will get to shortly. But first, our witness from Friday was back on the stand today, Dr. Daniel Wolf from ARCA. Now, a few main points were addressed here. First, the weight of that dummy arm that was used in testing. Now, last week, Brennan made a big deal about the dummy arm not being the bigger size. And he seemed to take it really personal that Alan Jackson asked Dr. Wolf where Brennan came up with the figure 11.8 pounds for John O'Keefe's arm. And Dr. Wolf said he didn't know. So today, Dr. Wolf explained that he said he doesn't know because he doesn't know what source Brennan used for that. And Dr. Wolf said in his initial testing, when they talked about the stuff that the feds had hired them to do, he said that the arm was estimated to be around 11 pounds. But he didn't say 11.8 or 11.86. So Brennan actually brought up the fact that Dr. Wolf had said 11 pounds before, and he asked Dr. Wolf about him feigning confusion.
And so when you feigned confusion on Friday about this 11 pounds,
Sustained.
so when you answered questions last Friday about wherever this 11.8 pounds came from, you weren't so confused about that because you've used 11 pounds before yourself, haven't you?
Yes, but again, I don't know where you got that 11.8 from, so.
Despite the arm being smaller than what Brennan says John O'Keefe's arm would have been, AJ had Dr. Wolf do the math on the stand. And y'all, even if he used the larger arm when the 24-mile-per-hour test was done, it still would have been less force than using the small arm at going 29 miles per hour. So Dr. Wolf had explained that they literally did the extra fast exercise just to account for all of this. And he actually did the math on the stand to show exactly what he was saying. So also, side note, when Brennan was saying last week that the dummy arm was 26% smaller than John O'Keefe's, and Dr. Wolf was like, okay, well, I'll just take your word for it. Yeah, we should all learn never to take Brennan's word for anything because it turns out it was like 20.9% smaller, not 26% smaller. They also did that math on the stand today. Dr. Wolf tries to tell Brennan that he used the arm that is in the 50th percentile, which is normal to do, and he said it doesn't impact his calculations in a big way. And Brennan continues to hammer on about this, demanding to know why he used the 50th percentile dummy. And then Dr. Wolf says something that should have just shut that right down.
I don't agree with that because, again, if you look how Dr. Welcher did it, he used the 50th percentile in his drop test with the head, and to calculate the force, he adjusted for Mr. John O'Keefe's mass of the head. Same thing is done in this instance with the lighter arm. We adjust for that in the calculations.
And just in case the jury didn't catch on, AJ made sure to bring it up one more time on redirect.
You were asked by Mr. Brennan, give me one name, very dramatically, of someone.
Objection. The objection sustained.
You were asked, give me one name to support using a 50 percentile hybrid 3 in testing forces on a 216-pound man. Do you remember that question?
Yes.
How about the name Judson Welcher? How about that name?
So the objection sustained.
Did Judson Welcher use a 50 percentile hybrid in his drop test?
Objection.
So that's sustained as to form.
What did Judson Welcher use in his drop test?
A hybrid 350th percentile male, the same that we use in our testing.
Now, during his testimony, it seems like Hank kept getting the roles of Dr. Rentschler and Dr. Wolf confused, and he was wanting to question Dr. Wolf on things that Dr. Rentschler will be testifying on. Now, as a reminder, Wolf and Rentschler are both from ARCA, but Wolf's focus is the car damage, and Rentschler's focus is the injuries. And as Dr. Wolf is trying yet again to explain this, Hank continues his disrespect.
I think, again, you're getting confused between my role and Dr. Rentschler. Can I finish, please?
No.
Objection.
Okay, so
No.
no comment, Mr. Brennan. Answer the question, please.
But some of the biggest testimony from Dr. Wolf today involved the damage to the hoodie and the testing that they did. So Brennan showed the dummy's sleeve last week and pointed out that there were holes in the sleeve. It was kind of like he was making it seem like those holes are kind of how John O'Keefe's shirt looked. But Jackson points out that the holes on that sleeve are actually from the left arm, not the right. And those holes are from road rash. So it's totally different kind of hole to the shirt. Plus, there was road rash all over the dummy's face and arms and jeans and all these other areas. So it wasn't just a sleeve. And then Hank questions Dr. Wolf about something that I've never heard before: the damage and holes in the back of John O'Keefe's hoodie.
Did you ever look at the back of the sweatshirt to see if there was any holes to the back of the sweatshirt other than the right arm when you formed your opinion?
I don't recall.
Take a look at the back. Do you see other holes on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt?
It appears I see one hole.
Let me get a little closer so you can get a better look. I'll direct you to here, 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 here. Do you see more than one hole in the back of Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt?
Yes.
When you were forming your opinions that the collision would be inconsistent to damage to Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt, did you consider that Mr. O'Keefe may have fallen or landed on his back?
Well, in looking at those holes, they're inconsistent with road rash. And again, to get those kind of holes, you have to have prolonged sliding contact on a rough surface.
Did you consider that Mr. O'Keefe may have fallen or landed on his back?
Well, if you just fall and land on your back, you're not going to be sliding to get those abrasions and tearing. And again, those are not consistent with road rash.
Now, I usually don't miss details like this, but I didn't remember ever hearing about holes in the back of the hoodie. And when Dr. Wolf was finished, the court had their morning recess. And I was following the reporters that were in the courtroom, and they said that the attorneys had gloves on and were taking John O'Keefe's shirt out of that big plastic casing that it was in. And then when we came back from break, all of a sudden there is a fiery argument for a mistrial.
Your Honor, the defense moves for a mistrial with prejudice based upon intentional misconduct that just occurred before the court and for the jury. Why is this occurring, Your Honor? Why is this happening? The Commonwealth has no case. They have no collision. They are desperate and are trying to create evidence of specters of collision where the evidence doesn't support it. So what have we come to? We've come to the manufacture of evidence. This is the antithesis of a fair trial. Miss Reed's rights under the Constitution and the Declaration of Rights have once again been trampled on, and it is becoming evidently clear the more desperate the prosecution gets because it can't prove its theory, including its own medical examiner, can't support them, that they're now resorting to conduct like this. Your Honor, at some point, this has to come to an end. At some point, Ms. Reed's rights have to be protected.
Now, those were some highlights from Alessi's arguments, but after he was done, Brennan then had to stand up and address the judge about this. And here is what he had to say.
Your Honor, my brief review of the lab paperwork and looking at the hoodie, it appears that I made a mistake. And so I think what should happen is there should be a curative instruction. There should be a stipulation. The court should instruct the jury that during Mr. Brennan's cross-examination, he asked Dr. Wolf about holes on the sweatshirt or holes on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt. And the parties agree the holes were made by a crime lab technician. This was done inadvertently but should not have been asked. The court should strike the questions and the answers. And you should instruct the jury there to completely disregard any questions or answers about the holes in the back of the sweatshirt. And the court should allow the defense to introduce the lab paperwork.
The fact that Brennan wants the jury to have an instruction that includes the judge saying that it was inadvertent, y'all, that is wild to me. There is no way that you can convince me that that was inadvertent, that it was just a mistake. If Hank really believed that that was like a gotcha moment, it would have been brought up on cross, not the second day during recross. The judge denied the motion for mistrial, of course, and instead gave the jury one simple statement saying that the holes were from the criminalist cutting them. As they were discussing what the instruction would be, Alessi actually leaned over to talk about this with Jackson, and Auntie Bev, who interrupted the defense every single chance that they had a chance to speak, got mad.
Of the events on January 29th, all right, this is what I'm going to say. So if you're not going to listen to it, that's fine. I've already said it. All right, we can bring the jury in. It's what I said, Mr. Alessi.
Your Honor, I was consulting with Mr. Alessi. I'm not showing disrespect to the court.
Okay.
Of course you were listening.
All right.
So the jury ends up getting the instruction that the holes are from the criminalist. And that's it. They move on. But the defense did say that they were going to be filing a motion because they didn't feel like that instruction was sufficient. So we'll see what they say. Now, there's a private investigator who did some measurements from the mailbox area to the 3 doors at the Alberts house, and we expect to hear more about those measurements later. And the final witness of the day is former Rhode Island medical examiner, Dr. Elizabeth Lapisada. Now, Brennan did not want Dr. Lapisada to be able to testify to John O'Keefe's wounds being consistent with dog wounds, and he didn't want her to be able to testify that the injuries are consistent or not consistent with a motor vehicle impact. Now, the defense previously objected to a Commonwealth dog trainer being able to give medical opinions on dog injuries, and the judge was like, yeah, no problem, just bring him in, no voir dire, no discussion, no issues. But when the Commonwealth objects, it seems like just about every single expert has to have a voir dire, like almost every single one. So they had a voir dire today where they questioned Dr. Lapisada. And despite the fact that she teaches about dog bite pattern recognition at a medical school level, and she's been qualified as a dog bite expert by a federal judge, Bev's like, no, she's not qualified. So she can't. She's not allowed to say it. She is allowed to testify to some of her experience with the motor vehicle impact stuff, but even that is limited. Now, when the defense wants to put their objections on the record, Bev pretty much rushes them, cuts them off, won't let them finish a sentence, and then tells them this.
And there's a motion on Dr. Rentschler. We will give that, I haven't read it yet. We'll give that no more than 5 minutes tomorrow morning each side. This jury, you can tell just by looking at this jury, they're fed up. So
AJ was trying to make the argument that Hank has known about Dr. Lapisada's report and testimony since March, but waited until June, like right now, to oppose it. And Bev kind of dismisses the argument on late disclosure. She's like, yeah, that's not part of my decision. And AJ works really hard to get the record to reflect that she's missing the point. The defense is the one who got the late disclosure on this. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Bev, again, interrupts the defense, not allowing them to make arguments for the record. And then the jury is brought in. Dr. Lapisada took the stand, and a lot of her time testifying was spent going over her credentials and background. She talked about how wound patterns are a huge part of forensic pathology and that she's done thousands of autopsies. She said that the laceration on the back of John O'Keefe's head is consistent with falling backwards and hitting his head, but said that she believes he hit something with a ridge or ledge or something with irregularity to it. And the cut above John O'Keefe's eye, Lapisada said it could be consistent with a fist. Now, Bev released the jurors a bit early so she and the attorneys could focus more on some housekeeping tasks. The motion for Dr. Rentschler will be argued first thing tomorrow morning. Now, once he takes the stand, the defense said his questioning will likely last like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Alessi said the defense will also be filing a motion tomorrow regarding the issues that it takes with that curative instruction that Bev gave. And last but not least, we learned who the rebuttal witnesses will be. They said at the end of the day, for sure, they are calling Dr. Welcher, Maureen Hartnett, who is the criminalist, and Dr. Terry Kuhn, the veterinary DNA specialist. So he is actually not going to call the dog trainer guy. Interesting. So we are getting so close to the end, y'all. So close. The defense could rest their case as soon as tomorrow by the end of the day. And then we have rebuttal and then closings, and it'll go to the jury. How are you feeling about the defense's case so far? Let me know in comments because we're getting close to the end. This is it. And of course, we will be live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for court right here on Crime Junkie Jury.